Every grocery store on Earth stocks 12 items that regulatory agencies in multiple countries have formally documented as harmful to human health. Not suspected, not still under review, not debated by industry spokespeople. Documented. Processed meats, aspartame, cassia cinnamon, farmed salmon, synthetic dyes, titanium dioxide, potassium bromate, PFAS-lined microwave bags, BPA-lined cans, chlorpyrifos, strawberries, margarine, seed oils with oxidized aldehydes. This is what is in the cart of the average family shopping in Sao Paulo, Warsaw, Lagos, and Los Angeles right now. A product sold in every country on Earth was formally classified as a Group 1 carcinogen by the World Health Organization in 2015. Same category as tobacco and asbestos. The product is processed meat. The classification came after 22 scientists from 10 countries reviewed over 800 studies. The mechanism is specific. When sodium nitrite, the preservative in hot dogs, deli ham, bacon, sausages, and salami, encounters the amines and amides in the gastrointestinal tract, the reaction produces N-nitroso compounds. N-nitroso compounds are potent mutagens. They attach to DNA in the colon's mucosal lining, triggering the cellular mutation sequence that leads to colorectal cancer. A 2018 IARC summary confirmed sufficient evidence in humans for the causal chain to be considered established. The World Cancer Research Fund told people to avoid processed meat entirely in 2007. That was 18 years ago. In supermarkets, from Berlin to Buenos Aires to Bangkok, those products are still on the shelf in cheerful packaging next to the bread. The label that says no added nitrates is not what it appears to be. Products marked natural or uncured replace sodium nitrite with celery juice concentrate. Celery juice is one of the most nitrate-dense substances in the human diet. There is no federal limit on how much celery juice can be added to a processed meat product. A 2020 study in Tufts University's Nutrition Journal confirmed that the nitrates from celery juice behave identically to food-grade sodium nitrite in the body. You paid more for the organic label? The mechanism is the same. The second item is in one of the most consumed beverages in the world. In July 2023, the International Agency for Research on Cancer classified aspartame, the sweetener in Diet Coke, Pepsi Max, Coca-Cola Zero, thousands of yogurts, chewing gums, and sugar-free products sold across 180 countries, as Group 2B, possibly carcinogenic to humans, based on limited but documented evidence for hepatocellular carcinoma, a form of liver cancer. The specific association was with consumption patterns, documented in multiple large European cohort studies, including the Nutrinet Santé cohort, which linked artificially sweetened beverage consumption to elevated cardiovascular disease risk. The 2024 Umbrella Review in Nutrition Reviews, examining 6 meta-analyses, found associations between regular artificial sweetener consumption and obesity, type 2 diabetes, and coronary heart disease. A 2020 study found that sucralose, another artificial sweetener used in Splenda, sold in over 80 countries, elevated insulin levels in healthy young adults in a randomized, double-blind controlled trial, an effect that should not occur in a substance with zero caloric impact on metabolism. Elevated insulin response in the absence of blood glucose is one of the foundational mechanisms of insulin resistance, which precedes type 2 diabetes. The market for aspartame and related sweeteners was valued at $3.1 billion globally in 2025, projected to reach $5.4 billion by 2033. That projection exists because the product is profitable, not because the science cleared it. What Kellogg's sells in the United States is not what Kellogg's sells in Germany. Fruit Loops in the American market is colored with red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6. All three are petroleum-derived synthetic dyes. All three require mandatory warning labels in the United Kingdom, and across the European Union reading, may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. In 2021, scientists at the California Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment completed a 3-year evaluation and concluded that synthetic food dyes, including red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6, cause hyperactivity and neurobehavioral problems in children at exposure levels the FDA currently permits. The agency's own data showed the permitted limits were set using studies that are now decades out of date. In Europe, reformulation happened immediately. In the rest of the world, the dye stayed. A 2012 toxicity review found that red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6 have been shown to be contaminated with known carcinogens in production. These dyes appear in cereals, candies, fruit drinks, snack cakes, and yogurts sold to children from Mexico City to Manila to Manchester. Kellogg's knows this. They removed the dyes from the European formulation. They left them in everywhere else. If this is the kind of documented evidence you came for, subscribe and drop your country in the comments. This script draws on data from the IARC Monographs program and the Environmental Working Group's pesticide database. Now back to the list. There is a white coating inside almost every piece of candy and chewing gum sold globally. The European Union banned it from food in 2022. France banned it in 2020. Titanium dioxide, listed on ingredient labels as E171 in Europe and as artificial color in North America, is used in Skittles, Starburst, Mentos, Orbit gum, coffee creamers, and hundreds of baked goods to achieve a whiter, more vivid appearance. The European Food Safety Authority reviewed the evidence and concluded in 2021 that titanium dioxide nanoparticles accumulate in the liver, kidneys, and lungs cannot be metabolized and have demonstrated genotoxic effects, meaning they can damage DNA in animal studies. The EU did not wait for human clinical confirmation. They banned it. In the United States, Canada, and most of the rest of the world, it remains classified as generally recognized as safe, a designation that has not been formally reviewed since the 1970s. The EU acted on accumulation. Everyone else is still selling the accumulation. Potassium bromate is a flour additive used to strengthen bread dough and improve the rise and texture of commercial baked goods. It is classified as Group 2B by IARC, possibly carcinogenic to humans. It is banned in the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, China, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, and Peru. It is legal and widely used in the United States, where it appears in bread, rolls, and commercial pizza dough under exactly that name on the ingredient label. The mechanism is direct. Potassium bromate converts to bromate ions in the digestive system, and those ions generate free radicals that damage renal tissue and have been shown to induce kidney and thyroid tumors in multiple animal studies. The FDA proposed restrictions on potassium bromate in 1999. The proposal was never finalized. Bread makers were given the option to voluntarily remove it. Many did not. The bread is still being baked with it 26 years later in the country with the largest global food export footprint. For a public that has no way to know from the package that the same ingredient is banned in most of the countries around them. The cinnamon in the spice aisle of virtually every grocery store on Earth is not the cinnamon you think it is. 90% of the cinnamon sold globally, labeled simply as cinnamon with no further specification, is cassia cinnamon, derived from the Cinnamomum cassia, Leroy, or Brahmani species. All three contain coumarin, a naturally occurring compound that at doses achievable through normal dietary use has been linked to liver damage and increased cancer risk in multiple studies. The European Food Safety Authority set tolerable daily intake limits for coumarin at 0.1 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. A 2010 German study found that children who regularly added cinnamon to their oatmeal were exceeding safe coumarin thresholds from that single use alone. True cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon from Cinnamomum verum, contains negligible coumarin levels. It is not what the mass market sells. The mass market sells cassia, charges the same price, and puts no distinction on the label. The product that does not damage your liver costs more and is harder to find. The product that is in your cabinet right now almost certainly contains the one with the documented toxicity threshold. PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, known as forever chemicals because they do not break down in the human body or the environment, were detected in microwave popcorn bags at measurable concentrations in studies published through 2020. The mechanism is heat transfer. The PFAS coating on the interior of the bag is designed to withstand microwave temperatures and prevent grease penetration. When the bag heats, PFAS migrate from the coating into the popcorn fat. PFOA, the specific PFAS compound used by DuPont in its Teflon and packaging manufacturing, was the subject of a $400 million settlement in 2004 after it was found to contaminate drinking water near DuPont facilities in West Virginia and Ohio. The settlement involved over 3,500 plaintiffs. DuPont's own internal studies from the 1960s documented that PFOA caused organ damage in animal studies. Those studies were not disclosed to regulators for decades. The European Food Safety Authority found PFAS compounds in the blood of 99% of people tested across Europe in studies through 2022. Industry reformulated away from PFOA under regulatory pressure. The replacements, GNX chemicals and other short-chain PFAS, are also being found in human blood samples globally. The bag is the delivery mechanism. The contents are the vehicle. The cans are next. Because the lining has been in dispute since 1993 and is still on supermarket shelves in 2026. Bisphenol A, known as BPA, was used for decades as an epoxy lining inside metal food cans to prevent corrosion and extend shelf life. BPA is a synthetic estrogen. It binds to estrogen receptor sites in human cells and mimics estrogen function. Studies in pregnant animals published since the 1990s have shown that prenatal BPA exposure increases the risk of breast cancer, prostate cancer, and reproductive disruption in the offspring. Canada declared BPA a toxic substance in 2010. The European Union restricted its use in food contact materials in 2015. The United States FDA concluded in 2012 that BPA was safe at current exposure levels and took no action. In 2023, the FDA convened a new review and again concluded no action was necessary, a conclusion that generated immediate public criticism from independent researchers, who noted that the review excluded 62 studies that found harm. Industry responded to public pressure not by removing BPA, but by replacing it with BPS and BPF, bisphenol compounds with the same estrogenic receptor binding activity and a fraction of the safety testing history. The package now says BPA-free. It does not say what replaced it. Farmed salmon is the most contaminated fish in the commercial food supply. Studies published between 2000 and 2005 in the journal Science, analyzing farmed salmon purchased from North American, South American, and European retailers, found that farmed Atlantic salmon contained concentrations of polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, at levels between 5 and 10 times higher than wild-caught salmon. PCBs are classified as probable human carcinogens by IARC. The contamination pathway is the feed. Farmed salmon are fed compressed pellets made from smaller ocean fish that have accumulated PCBs from industrial pollution. The denser the pellet, the higher the accumulated toxin load per kilogram of fish flesh. In addition to PCBs, farmed salmon are routinely administered antibiotics to manage the bacterial and parasitic infections that flourish in high-density aquaculture pens, a practice that has been directly linked by the World Health Organization to the acceleration of antibiotic resistance, which WHO identifies as one of the 10 greatest threats to global public health. The pink color of farmed salmon is not natural. In the wild, salmon consume krill and small crustaceans rich in carotenoid pigments. In farms, the feed contains synthetic astaxanthin, a petroleum-derived chemical, added specifically to produce the orange-pink flesh color that consumers associate with nutritional quality. The color is a cosmetic decision. The label says Atlantic salmon. The label does not say what was added to make it look like the fish it is not. More than 90% of non-organic strawberry samples collected by the United States Department of Agriculture in 2023 tested positive for pesticide residues. The Environmental Working Group's 2023 analysis found a total of 22 different pesticides on a single strawberry sample at the high end. The pesticide chlorpyrifos, an organophosphate insecticide, was used on strawberry crops for decades. In 2016, the United States Environmental Protection Agency's own analysis found that chlorpyrifos caused neurodevelopmental damage in children at exposure levels previously considered safe. The agency proposed a ban. The ban was reversed in 2019 under political pressure from the agricultural industry. The ban was reinstated in 2021. Chlorpyrifos was formally removed from use on food crops in the United States in 2021, but it is still legally used on crops in dozens of countries from which produce is exported globally. And it is still one compound among 22. The other 21 remain. The 2024 EWG analysis confirmed that 3 of the 10 most frequently detected pesticides on all fruits and vegetables are PFAS pesticides, the same forever chemicals that accumulate in the human body, appear in breast milk, and have been found in the blood of people on every inhabited continent. The strawberry is the delivery mechanism. The farm is the source. The gap between the two is what you pay for when you skip the organic label. The last item was in kitchens globally for 50 years before the mechanism was confirmed, by which point the damage had already been measured in deaths. Trans fats, produced by partial hydrogenation of vegetable oils, found in margarine brands sold across every continent, including Flora, Rama, Country Crock, and Blue Band, were the subject of a formal determination by the United States FDA in 2013. Partially hydrogenated oils are not generally recognized as safe. The agency estimated that removing trans fats from the food supply would prevent approximately 20,000 heart attacks and 7,000 deaths per year in the United States alone. The World Health Organization launched a global elimination initiative in 2018, estimating that trans fats were responsible for 500,000 premature deaths worldwide every year. The mechanism is now fully documented. Artificial trans fats elevate LDL cholesterol, suppress HDL cholesterol, and trigger systemic inflammation by disrupting the function of delta-6 desaturase, the enzyme responsible for converting essential fatty acids into anti-inflammatory compounds. The food industry knew this mechanism was a possibility as early as the 1960s, when researchers first flagged the structural instability of the partially hydrogenated bond. The industry funded studies through the 1970s and 80s that minimized the association. Those studies are documented. Their funders are documented. The 500,000 annual deaths are documented. The margarine is still on the shelf in countries that have not yet completed their phase out, because 58 countries had still not banned trans fats as of 2023. The WHO's global elimination deadline was 2023. It was not met. What you just heard is not a list of things to be cautious about. Every item on this list has been evaluated by a regulatory body somewhere on Earth and found dangerous enough to restrict, ban, or formally classify as a carcinogen or endocrine disruptor. Every item on this list is still sold, openly, in at least one country that has not yet acted. In many cases, in the country where you are watching this right now, the gap between what the science says and what is on the shelf is not an accident. It is the product of a regulatory system that requires proof of acute harm before it acts on documented chronic harm, and of an industry that has, in documented cases, from DuPont to the Sugar Research Foundation to the trans fat era, funded the studies that delayed that proof by decades. The 500,000 deaths a year from trans fats did not happen because the information did not exist. They happened because acting on the information was expensive for people who were not the ones dying.